We begin this hour with President Trump's push to expand his presidential power and what, if anything, is being done to try to rein him in. Just this week, Trump called for more of his political rivals to be prosecuted, issued a controversial pardon, and said that the Department of Justice owes him money. But some Democrats refuse to stand idly by and are taking action. Senators Adam Schiff and Elizabeth Warren have introduced a resolution to officially condemn Trump's pardon of Changpeng Zhao, the founder of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Binance. Zhao served 4 months in prison after pleading guilty in 2023 to enabling money laundering at Binance. And to no one's surprise, Binance has financial ties to the Trump family's crypto business. Meanwhile, in the House, Democrats have launched a probe into Trump's demands for the Justice Department to pay him up to $230 million as a potential settlement for previous investigations into his conduct. The ranking members of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees sent a letter directly to Trump requesting that he hand over documents and information to their committees. One of those Democrats, Congressman Jamie Raskin, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, joins us now. Congressman Raskin, as always, thank you very much for coming to the weekend and being on set. Now, what makes you think you're going to get those documents and things from President Trump on this?
Well, he's asking for $230 million from the taxpayer, so we don't think that this can just be some kind of backroom sign-off operation.
At least want to see an invoice.
Well, yes, we'd like to see some documentation of some of it. I mean, parts of it are just patently ridiculous, like asking for $85 million in punitive damages against the federal government. You can't get punitive damages against the federal government. It's against the law. It's written into the Federal Tort Claims Act that you can't get it. But the whole thing is preposterous because he's asking for $230 million based on the execution of a judicial search warrant at Mar-a-Lago. Remember when he had been concealing all the classified documents, refusing to turn them over, turn some over, try to get them all back and so on. How is he injured? The Tort Claims Act is about people who are violently injured, physically injured, or killed by the government.
He wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, I know he was not physically injured by virtue of what they're calling the raid, which is just the execution of a search warrant, which happens hundreds of thousands of times a year across the country. Imagine if everybody got $230 million because their home or their office was investigated. But in any event, in his case, it's totally ridiculous because the Constitution says that the president is limited to his official salary in office. That's in Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. It says his salary cannot be increased, it cannot be decreased, and no other compensation can be received. And he just wants a cool $230 million because he thinks the government is his piggy bank.
And at the end of the day, it's really important for folks, and Sam Stein reminded us of this yesterday, is that most of his legal fees were paid, the $230 million or however much, were paid by the super PAC that was created and people donated into. So really, the money ain't his to begin with, but I will digress.
His donors have already paid for it, essentially.
Exactly.
Now he wants to go back to the taxpayers to put more money in his pocket.
And not to mention the fact that there was a lot of tension at the time between him and his personal lawyers about whether they were getting paid and how much they were getting paid.
Exactly. I want to play some sound from your House Speaker, Mike Johnson, before and after he claimed to have read the New York Times report about the $230 million, but he still didn't know either way.
Yeah.
The Times is reporting the president is asking DOJ to pay him $230 million for his past cases. Is that appropriate, considering it's a department under his control?
I'm not going to comment on something I haven't read, so I'm not sure what you're talking about.
How comfortable are you with the president apparently seeking $230 million from the Department of Justice?
I don't know the details about that. I've just read it. I didn't talk with him about that.
I didn't talk to him about that.
Yeah.
That sentence to me is very telling and very important because what it says is I was not told what to say.
Yeah.
Right? Like if someone asked me a question after I read an article, I'm probably going to have an opinion about it. You probably would have an opinion about it.
Yeah.
I don't have to talk to the subject of that article to have formed an opinion in my adult brain.
Well, at least Trump's allowing him opinions sometimes because Trump the other day said, I am the president and the speaker. I mean, there has never been a more humiliating subjection of the Speaker of the House of Representatives in American history than what we're living through right now. We haven't even been in session for a month. You know, the Senate at least is in session, but they just closed down the House and they've closed down the government and they're trying to close down the health care of the people. And Mike Johnson says, I basically can't say anything until the White House tells me what to say.
Well, I'm smiling just because when you say you might not have seen me today, it's because the president threatened to jail me. So any day you might not see me, I suppose. But I ask that you visit me at the Gulag in El Salvador when that happens.
Deal.
What's happening on the ground right now is that we have ICE and Customs and Border Patrol who are literally stopping people who are brown and asking them for their papers to prove that they're U.S. citizens or that they have a legal right to be in the country. So we're seeing literally that is the only criteria that's being used often. We are seeing that Customs and Border Patrol have been marching in uniform with semi-automatic or automatic weapons in the streets of downtown Chicago. We are seeing unmarked vehicles and masked agents invading every neighborhood all across, not just the city of Chicago, but all the suburbs also. And then we've got the court cases that are going on simultaneously. There's a private case that's been brought mostly by media organizations that has been very effective at limiting the activity of ICE, or at least putting some restrictions on them. They have to reveal who they are when they're detaining somebody. And that private action is on top of the action by our government and our attorney general, which has won so far every level of hearing that's taken place, including a temporary restraining order.
And there's another $130 million that I feel like I've identified actually almost $1 billion that maybe could go towards the SNAP assistance
literally anything
over the course of this week between the East Wing and this DOJ payment, and now Timothy Mellon, who's donated $130 million to pay troops. Timothy Mellon is, as the New York Times reported, a reclusive billionaire, a major financial backer of Trump, and is the anonymous donor who gave this money to the U.S. government to help pay the troops during the shutdown. What are House oversight Democrats doing about this roundabout, unprecedented way of...
And possibly illegal.
Right. And politically, and I mean, if we're being very clear, very politically expedient donation for
Well, the first thing is that the only appropriations of money from the federal government that are allowable come from Congress. Only Congress can appropriate money. So if somebody gave us $500 billion or gave Trump $500 billion, he'd have to turn it over to the U.S. Treasury, and the appropriation is only lawful if it comes from Congress. But look, the bottom line is what we're saying to the billionaires of America is pay your taxes like everybody else pays their taxes, pay your fair share, and no, you can't buy off little pieces of the government. We'll take care of paying for the White House. And Congress should be deciding, not the president, what federal buildings are going to be, because we are the lawmaking branch of government in Article 1.
But that's the way things work on Earth 1,
yes,
Congressman. But it seems like we are all living. The president lives on Earth 2,
Earth 42,
and we're just going along for the ride. What, if anything, can you do to stop this? Is it that we have to wait until the elections of 2026, assuming they happen and assuming Democrats take the majority, in order for Congress to reassert itself? Well, at least I should say the House at least reassert itself as a co-equal branch of government?
Fundamentally, yes, because Mike Johnson won't do it and Thune won't do it. They're not interested in standing up for Congress as a branch, which is what the framers of the Constitution predicted would happen. They weren't predicting political parties carving up the government. They thought that people in Congress would stand up for the legislative voice of the people against the president, but that is not happening. So we've got to take Congress back. Meantime, we're involved in a whole lot of litigation to stop this reign of lawlessness and torture of our basic institutions and constitutional values.
But what is the plan for House Democrats if you guys take back the majority next year? I mean, we know when Republicans took the majority a few years ago, James Comer, Jim Jordan, they came in, they had the Committee on the Weaponization of Government. They staffed up. They hired tons of investigators. They brought in as many lawyers as possible. What are the committee's plans exactly next year when you do have the power of the subpoena?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves in terms of specifying, like,
Remember, he said he wasn't going to tell us till the spring.
our top 5 items are. But no,
Still going to ask you every time you come on.
No, it is very much within our agenda to restore the rule of law and to try to fight for a.
But what does that look like?
Well, it means that the Justice Department will not be weaponized the way it's being weaponized. It will not be monetized in the way it's being monetized for the president, and it will not be used to prosecute the political foes of the president, in his view. The Department of Justice will be held to account for following the law and following the Constitution.
Why didn't Democrats?
This paints a stark picture of President Trump's current exercise of power and its implications for democratic governance. The primary concern is his apparent effort to leverage the presidency for personal, financial, and political gain. Notably, Trump has publicly demanded that the Department of Justice pay him up to $230 million as compensation for prior investigations and legal proceedings against him, a request with no grounding in law whatsoever. As Congressman Jamie Raskin notes, punitive damages against the federal government are explicitly prohibited under the Federal Tort Claims Act, and the Constitution limits the president to a fixed salary with zero additional compensation. Trump is effectively treating taxpayer money as a personal fund, further compounding the ethical and legal concerns around his actions. Moreover, the content underscores the interconnectedness between Trump's private business interests and his political decisions. The controversial pardon of Changpeng Zhao, founder of Binance, a company with financial ties to Trump's own family crypto businesses, highlights potential conflicts of interest and raises some questions about the impartiality of presidential powers. Obviously, he's making some backroom deals here. So these actions reveal a pattern of using official authority to benefit himself and his allies and his family instead of serving the broader public interest. I don't think anyone at this point thinks that Trump is serving the public interest. He's padding his own wallet quite thick at this point. The role of legislative oversight, or rather its absence here, is another critical dimension. House Speaker Mike Johnson's inability or unwillingness to publicly comment on Trump's $230 million demand illustrates an unprecedented subordination of Congress to the executive. Congress is giving all of its power to the president. Rather than acting as a co-equal branch of government, Congress appears completely passive and subordinate to Trump, deferring to the president on matters that directly challenge constitutional limits. Raskin's commentary emphasizes that such deference undermines the foundational checks and balances designed by the framers, leaving a very dangerous precedent where presidential overreach goes largely unchecked and he becomes the king that we tried to escape from in the first place. Equally alarming is the militarized deployment of federal agencies in domestic contexts, particularly in Chicago most recently. Governor J.B. Pritzker details the ICE and Customs Border Patrol operations that target individuals based on race or ethnicity, often bypassing due process completely. And the Supreme Court said that's legal now. That's how it is. Reports of unmarked vehicles, mass detentions, intimidation and fear tactics. All of this reflects a systemic erosion of civil liberties, because if random masked agents can pull anyone off the street, what rights do you really have? And this disproportionately impacts Black, brown, and undocumented communities, people who are just living their lives and following the law and paying taxes, and tearing them out of their communities, which does so much more damage than to just them and their families. The narrative here portrays a chilling environment in which basic constitutional protections are sidelined completely, and federal authority is weaponized to instill fear rather than uphold actual law and order. Taken together, the evidence in the reference material depicts a convergence of legal overreach, ethical compromise, and institutional weakness. Trump's actions, ranging from financial demands and controversial pardons to the militarized policing of civilians and non-civilian people who are just there living their lives and not breaking any laws besides the laws that Trump makes up to excuse his kidnappings of them, challenges the balance of power in American governance and politics. Meanwhile, political actors like Speaker Johnson appear completely complicit and subordinate through inaction or following his every word, further enabling a system where checks on executive power are completely gone or ineffective at most. The overarching implication is that the preservation of democratic norms will require actual, deliberate, coordinated intervention from Congress, the courts, and ultimately public engagement to reassert accountability and safeguard the integrity of the presidency.